Romance of the Three Kingdoms is one of the most popular Chinese novels ever written in history. Its popularity has expanded beyond Chinese culture, reaching other countries such as South Korea, Japan, and even America. TV shows, YouTube videos, and video games are still being made about this historical era today. And if you have read the novel or played any of the games, Yellow Turban Rebellion has always acted as the introduction to this epic story. Historically speaking, however, Emperor Xian of Han, abdicating the imperial throne to Cao Pi in 220 AD, officially marked the end of Han Dynasty and the beginning of Three Kingdoms era. Then, why didn't the romance of the Three Kingdoms begin with these events? Instead, it started with the Yellow Turban Rebellion, an event that started 36 years earlier in 184 AD. Simple. Imagine a romance of the Three Kingdoms without Guan Yu and Cao Cao. It's not as interesting, right? As the introductory chapter to Romance of the Three Kingdoms, not much details were given as to why the Yellow Turbans rebelled. We were only given a simple one-line explanation. Court administration became so corrupt that across the land, men's thoughts turned to rebellion, and outlaws swarmed like hornets. But there's so much more to this 400-year-old rich history of Han Dynasty. Thus, to fully understand the cause, we need to go back even further to 25 AD, when Eastern Han Dynasty was first founded. The Han Dynasty didn't start out as weak and corrupt. It was considered the golden age in Chinese history. Territory was expanded compared to the previous Qin Dynasty. Paper, a common item that we are using today, was invented by the Chinese during this time period. Most importantly, this golden age led to the creation of a Chinese identity. Today, Chinese still identify themselves as the people of Han, the language they use as Han language, the words as Han characters, named after this particular dynasty. Then, how did such an influential and powerful empire collapse, ultimately resulting in the outbreak of Yellow Turban Rebellion?
The Yellow Turbans are upon us! You have to save our village!
Know your place! We are the Imperial Army! We have no time to waste with worthless plans!
Corruption within the Imperial Court had thrown the land into chaos and caused the people to suffer greatly. In this time of uncertainty, the people found themselves yearning for change.
Suffering. Corruption. It ends today! The Han must be overthrown! The yellow sky must rise!
Forward! The time has come for us to build a new world!
First, I would like to show you this interesting fact about Eastern Han Dynasty. When talking about the word emperor, you immediately think about a powerful man ruling over the land, with servants ready to obey his every order. The first three emperors of Eastern Han Dynasty, Emperor Guangwu Liu Xiu, Emperor Ming Liu Zhuang, and Emperor Zhang Liu Da, fit that description. But from 88 AD onwards, the emperors looked more like these. From the time of the fourth emperor, Emperor He Liu Zhao, not one of the successors to the imperial throne was older than 15 years old at his accession, and none lived till the age of 36. The youngest of them all, Emperor Shang, was barely 100 days old when he ascended the imperial throne, and he died just 7 months later. Yes, I'm not kidding. This is the youngest emperor ever in Chinese history. Now, here comes the question. Did all these children emperors know anything about governing an empire? Nope. Most of these children emperors were probably too busy playing with their toys rather than governing over this huge mass of land and people. So, who was next in line to rule while the child emperor needed time to grow up? Well, here comes the Empress Dowager, the empress to the previous dead emperor. When the reigning emperor was too young to govern the empire, Empress Dowager would act as a regent, essentially ruling in place of the emperor. But there was another problem. Did the Empress Dowager know anything about governing an empire? Nope. You see, the Empress Dowager was only in her late teens or early 20s, and she was incapable of governing the empire on her own as well. She needed trustworthy men to help her with public administration. So, she started playing favoritism by appointing her father, brothers, and relatives to key government positions. This faction of Empress Dowager and her relatives will be known as Imperial Consort Family. By taking control of the child emperor as a puppet and hiding him away from outside influence, the Imperial Consort Family started dominating the central government and controlling the empire. All of this happened because the previous emperor did not have an heir before his death. In such a case, it was customary for the Empress Dowager to handpick a member of the Imperial Liu family to ascend the throne. Then, it became clear why a child would be picked as the next emperor. It was done so that the Imperial Consort family could control the child emperor and the empire for as long as possible. As time went on, however, the child emperor finally grew up into an adult. He started to realize that he was only an emperor in name without any real power. The imperial court was dominated by these officials, loyal to the Imperial Consort family, not to the emperor himself. So the grown-up emperor wanted to seize power for himself. He wanted to overthrow the Imperial Consort family. He needed trustworthy allies who would keep the plan a secret. So, who did the emperor trust the most? The eunuchs, who were the emperor's closest servants in the imperial palace. How close was the relationship between the emperor and the eunuchs? Let me give you an example. According to historical record, it was said that the penultimate emperor of Eastern Han Dynasty, Emperor Ling, recognized two of the eunuchs Zhang Rang and Zhao Zhong as his father and mother. With the eunuchs' help, the emperor succeeded in securing the government officials required to draft an edict, removed the leaders of Imperial Consort family from power. In just an instant, the Consort family who had dominated the imperial court were arrested, executed, or barred from office. Well, now that the emperor has regained his power, the empire will be peaceful again, right? Nope. Being indebted to the eunuchs, the emperor started trusting them for help in public administration. But the eunuchs misused this trust by abusing their power, forming a new faction that dominated the central government again. The eunuchs and their relatives were given posts as inspectors of provinces across the empire. But these so-called inspectors committed crimes like robbing other men's properties and raising taxes, snatching the people's hard-earned money into their own wallets. Life became miserable for citizens across the empire. Corruption became so bad that during this time, officials were selected based on wealth instead of merit. Bribing the eunuchs became the fastest way for an official to secure his position. Before I continue, I want to remind you that the eunuch's power originated from the emperor's gratitude and trust. Remember this info that I have shown you in the beginning? Another important data is the age these emperors died. Generally, they died young. So, when the emperor died, gone too was the favor and power gained by the eunuchs. From 88 AD onwards, the Eastern Han Dynasty was trapped in this perpetual vicious cycle, which looks something like this. The previous emperor died young and did not have an heir. Empress Dowager appointed a new child emperor. Imperial Consort family took control of central government. Child emperor grew up and overthrew the Imperial Consort family with the eunuchs' help. Eunuchs gained the emperor's trust and abused their power. The emperor died young and the eunuchs lost their power. This cycle repeated itself until the collapse of Eastern Han Dynasty. During all this chaos, attention was drawn away from public administration. Instead of focusing on improving the society and people's lives, government officials were more concerned with infighting between factions to secure more power and wealth for themselves. While all of the previously described bribery and corruption were happening, there was still hope. There existed a third faction that kept the empire running: the scholar officials. Being heavily influenced by Confucius' teachings, the scholar officials were compelled by their sense of benevolence and righteousness to keep the eunuchs under control. These loyal officials constantly criticized the eunuchs and their allies for their crimes committed against the people. Execution of eunuchs was even suggested as a solution to remove the source of all evil and misdeeds. This rivalry between the eunuchs and scholar officials reached its climax in 169 AD, culminating in a major event called the Great Proscription. The eunuchs retaliated by spreading rumors, accusing the scholar officials of banding together, forming a political party aimed at overthrowing the emperor. The reigning emperor at this time, Emperor Ling, being highly trustful of the eunuchs, believed all the rumors. And thus, the anti-eunuch scholar officials who wanted to change the empire for the better were purged, exiled, and barred from office for life. What resulted was the frustration of many loyal scholar officials, shattering their confidence and loyalty to the emperor, who would rather quit their office than continue serving. This act would be the final nail in the coffin of Eastern Han Dynasty. Following the removal of their rivals, the eunuchs' corrupted ways went unchecked. Their power reached its peak during Emperor Ling's reign, where 12 of the most powerful eunuchs were collectively known as 10 regular attendants, and they dominated central government just like the imperial consort's family before them. The Great Proscription would continue for 15 years and ended in 184 AD when the Yellow Turban Rebellion broke out, not because Emperor Ling had finally realized his mistakes and wanted to restore the empire. No. It was only because he feared that the joining of forces between the resentful scholar officials and the rebels would threaten his rule. So, while all of these were happening in the imperial capital of Luoyang, what was happening to the peasants and citizens all around the empire? Well, on top of the corruption, extortion, and brutality displayed by the eunuchs, Mother Nature certainly did not help either. Let me show you the data about Emperor Ling's reign from 168 AD to 189 AD, during which the Yellow Turban Rebellion broke out. There was a total of 29 recorded cases of wide-scale natural disasters, averaging at 1.3 cases per year. These natural disasters included flood, typhoon, hail, earthquake, drought, locust plague, and epidemic. I want to focus more on epidemic. There were a total of 10 recorded cases of epidemic during Eastern Han Dynasty, and interestingly, 5 cases happened during Emperor Ling's reign, averaging at 1 case every 3 years. Epidemic was a serious problem in an agricultural society back in the day, where men relied on manual labor for livelihood. And when these men got sick and even worse, died, they could no longer work on the fields, causing serious social problems to the empire. Finally, by 184 AD, all the suffering throughout the years had slowly but surely building up dissatisfaction, resentment, and hatred towards the empire among the citizens. But there was still hope. Here at Julu Commandery, the epidemic provided a perfect opportunity for a self-proclaimed great teacher named Zhang Jiao to establish a cult following by curing the sick. More specifically, by confessions of sins and consumption of burnt Chinese talisman ashes dissolved in water, which, by the way, is just lead in water that causes lead poisoning instead of healing. So, please, don't try this at home. Nonetheless, a lot of people miraculously got healed. Zhang Jiao then took this opportunity to send out his disciples, spreading his teachings across the empire. It was said that over a period of 10 years, the healing rituals gained Zhang Jiao hundreds of thousands of followers from Qing, Xu, You, Ji, Jing, Yang, Yan, and Yu, 8 provinces. There was even a systematic way of organizing all these followers. Zhang Jiao established 36 divisions, each being led by a general. It was said that the large divisions were over 10,000 men, while smaller divisions consisted of up to 7,000 men. And by the next Jiazi year in Chinese calendar, 184 AD, preparations were complete for Zhang Jiao to stage a large-scale rebellion in an attempt to overthrow the Eastern Han Dynasty. Upon Zhang Jiao's order, all followers bowed their heads with yellow scarves to signify the rise of yellow sky. This event will become what we now know as the Yellow Turban Rebellion. By the second half of the 2nd century, a combination of constant infighting between factions in the central government, corrupt officials, and frequent natural disasters had produced widespread public dissatisfaction with the reigning emperor, turning them to seek comfort and help in unorthodox religion. And Zhang Jiao seized this opportunity to turn his followers' faith in his religion into a political action against Eastern Han Dynasty, culminating in the Yellow Turban Rebellion. Unfortunately, the rebellion only lasted 1 year and was suppressed after Zhang Jiao's death. We can see that the empire was still capable of organizing military forces to deal with the rebellion. Yellow Turban Rebellion should therefore only be seen as a sign of the dynasty's decline instead of the cause. So, why did the Yellow Turban Rebellion break out? To answer this question, we need to only look at the emperor and his corrupt eunuchs, who were the source of all widespread public dissatisfaction. If the eunuchs were the perpetrator, then the emperor was the enabler that allowed corruption to have free reign over the empire.